To say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? Once again, we take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for allowing us to communicate through this particular gateway at this time to your civilization. Once again, each and every time, our civilization is afforded an opportunity to communicate with you in this way. It opens up our understanding of the universe by experiencing through each and every one of your unique perspectives that many more ways that the infinite has of expressing itself. So we thank you for this gift. We would like to begin this transmission this day of your time with a subject that we would like to entitle Etheric Fauna and the Dragon. The idea being to understand that in what you call the astral realms and the etheric realms, these levels, these dimensions of reality are just as populated as your dimension with forms of consciousness that may not always have a physiological counterpart. There are just as many configurations of flora and fauna in the astral and etheric realms as there are in the physiological realm. Now, anything that is physiological will have, to some degree, an astral and etheric counterpart, but not everything that is etheric will always manifest itself or solidify a version of itself in physical reality. So in many ways, the idea of the etheric dimensions, the astral levels, in many ways, they will contain things that you do not experience in physical reality as a manifestation of life, though sometimes there may be temporary, momentary projections and or manifestations of etheric life in physical reality that then may give rise to mythologies and legends and memories of certain creatures and beings and so forth, and then they may again disappear back into the etheric levels, raise their vibrations back up to the etheric realm, and so in a sense seem to disappear from physical reality, again giving rise to the mysteriousness of these reports, of these so-called mythologies and legends that individuals know they have perceived, but then cannot, quote-unquote, prove the existence of, since they no longer manifest in physiological terms. The idea of the being, of the level of consciousness that you have referred to in your past as the dragon is one such example. It exists as an etheric expression. It, in a sense, inhabits or lives in the lower astral and etheric realms, only rarely pushing itself for a variety of reasons into physiological reality. Now, of course, there were times in what you call your ancient history where conditions were more conducive, literally more conductive, for these kinds of beings to be able to manifest in physiological terms for longer periods of time than they may be capable of doing now. Although now, in your physical reality, times are changing and coming back around to when more and more etheric fauna has more ability, more likelihood, more of a conducive atmosphere because of the changes going on in your collective consciousness to be able to perhaps be perceivable, to manifest in physiological reality as they used to long ago. And so it may be that more and more often people on your planet will begin to perceive different kinds of interactions, different kinds of beings, or at least be capable of sensing the existence of these beings in a more realistic way, so to speak, because the veils are becoming thin between physiological, astral, and etheric reality. And what you call different manifestations of spirit and other kinds of phenomenology, such as crop circles, are an indication that things that heretofore were mostly only in the domain of the astral and etheric realms, are now more capable of becoming manifested, or at least capable of manifesting an aspect of themselves in physiological reality for your perception, for your interaction, as you so desire. Now, the dragon, in specific terms, symbolically, and to some degree literally, is a manifestation of an aspect of the collective consciousness of your realm, of your dimension, of your people, of your intelligence. It is connected to many other things as well in the idea of your past journey, in the idea of where the spirits of that which is now human also connect to and come from, but as a manifestation of a being in that particular format that you call the shape of the dragon, there is now ability to understand that this being represents the core, very deep, ancient core of humanity's psychic wisdom and its ability to express itself in a multitude of ways, even within each individual. In that each individual contains a multitude of personality aspects and can express the self as an aspect of the infinite in a multitude of ways. This is why many of the more ancient symbols of dragons express themselves or are represented by multi-headed dragons, what you call the Hydra, with many heads. This was an expression and a representation that the core, autonomous, archetypal being of the dragon was representative of many different levels of your being and capable of expressing itself in many different ways, even within one individual, of presenting many faces. In that context, you will find that now that you are gaining more insight, more understanding of your multitudinous personalities within each and every being, you can begin to tap back into that core power, that ancient power that is representative, in fact, of your full of your fullest expression of power in physiological reality. That is what the dragon generally and most simply symbolizes, your fullest expression of power in physical reality. The idea is also that because it is ancient, it expresses and represents the initial inception of humanity into physical reality, of spirit into physical reality in the earth plane. That is why it is represented by that kind of creature, in that the first expression or first level of expressiveness of your physicality in terms of your ability to think, your ability to perceive and interact in physical reality, in the brain is represented by what you often refer to as the reptilian brain, the primitive, simple brain. The dragon is representative of this level as far as your collective intelligence is concerned. In other words, the combination of all of your reptilian level of the brain combines to form the level you call the dragon. And so when you tap into the dragon, you are tapping into the most original, most essential, most primitive, but not in a negative sense, level of your initial inception as spirit collectively into physical reality. And thus, when you tap into that, can express that initial recognition and realization and connection to all the things of nature, of physical reality, and all the things of astral realms, and all the things of etheric realms and spirit realms that will allow you to reclaim, in a sense, your grounded power, your ability to function with conviction and commitment in the way that you recognize the power of the dragon to represent. Also, you will recognize that to some degree now in this day and age, one of the manifestations of your ability to allow the etheric realm to manifest itself more concretely will be some of the interactions that many of you are now having with what you perceive as a reptilian species. This is simply a reflection of another aspect of the collective humanity and all the connections you have with other beings that all together, you, the Greys, the Reptilians, many others, that all together, I would ask you to understand, are different faces and different aspects of one larger intelligence. Start to look at yourselves in this way as one of the heads of the Hydra, and you will begin to also be able to trace back down the necks to the body your connection and your relationship not only to all of yourselves, but to many of the other beings in creation that play their part in the overall history that you all share going back many, many millennia into the past and even unto other worlds and other civilizations. This is the time of the expression of that power, of the expression of becoming the dragon, the mage, the wizard, the sorcerer, so on and so forth, and allowing yourself to know that etheric fauna, astral inhabitants, etheric inhabitants, you all have counterparts there. You all individually and collectively can connect back to those levels and reclaim the overall connection that you have, not only to yourself as an individual in those levels, but to the collective whole in those levels. For in those levels, and especially in the etheric, there are fewer barriers and fewer separations, and it is easier by going to that level to connect to the totality of humanity, the totality of intelligence that expresses itself in any form of civilization, in any form of discrete dimensionality. To understand your connection to it, to understand how to relate to it, and to understand how to bring through and express that connection where it is applicable and germane for your present experience of the physical earth domain. Let all that sink in. Remember that you are hearing this also on many different levels. So even if some of this does not make sense to your outer mentality physically, it makes sense to your being on a resonant level, and when you simply begin to allow yourself to identify with the concept of the dragon as an etheric representation of the collective wisdom of all of your kind and your innate power and ability to express and claim that power, you will begin to get the point, and you will begin to feel the fire that lights you up inside, which is your own internal light, your own internal power of creative expression. We thank you for allowing us to represent this idea in this way to you this day of your time. Once again, in return for the gift that you are giving to us and our civilization, we ask now, in what way may I and my world be of service to you? You, good day.